It's 10:01 already, so I think we're very well on time. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the second episode of the B2B Marketing Excellence Podcast. I am Mike. I have with me Thomas Channon, and we are your hosts for this morning.
Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Today we'll be talking about websites.
That's
and
right.
How we can make it better, optimize it for the B2B market. We've got three case studies ready to show.
Correct. So this morning we'll be reviewing 3 B2B websites, 3 case studies. One is already on the screen. One of our clients, 𝘽2𝘽, the plastics wizards. 𝘽2𝘽 is an organization that operates factories in Thailand and in the Philippines. They have 2 manufacturing facilities in Thailand, one in the Philippines plus one more that they're building, and they have offices in Singapore, so quite a decent organization. They make parts for Western Digital. They used to make parts for the iPhone. They used to work for Nokia. Their customers are usually people who need premium plastic parts, so medical device manufacturers, companies producing casings for electronic devices, places where basically you need complex parts and you can't have mistakes. So 𝘽2𝘽's current website, we're going to scroll through it right now, kind of standard stuff, a nice hero image, a blurb, nice call to action. There are 2 primary service lines: thermoforming and injection molding, easily accessible. Their certifications for credibility, then some more of their solutions, their facilities, great for credibility also. See the picture of the factories, always makes a good impression, especially when the factory looks great. Case studies, always a good way to indicate that you are competent, and a great way to highlight also your customers. Your customers always enjoy seeing themselves on your website. It's a nice PR thing to do, and it's of course great for your own credibility. News and a contact form. So pretty standard stuff for the homepage. And how can we make this better? So that's what we're going to look at right now.
Add a pretty picture of my face. Makes everything better.
Absolutely. Your face, that's it. We have your face on the website. That's basically what we're going to do from now on. We're going to have your face on all the websites that we do. And that's going to be our suggestion. So interestingly enough, you brought up the topic of faces. And I can see already that we're sharing the proposed mock-up, and you will see that one of the proposed changes that we're making is we're actually integrating a face. In this case, the face of Mr. 𝘽2𝘽, who is the co-founder of the 𝘽2𝘽 factories, inside the call to action button. And why are we doing that? There's a few reasons. First of all, in Chris's case, he's famous for being an absolutely lovely individual, and he's supremely knowledgeable about plastic, and I'd say he's a bit of an opinion leader in his field in the region. And people know him, so it's great to associate Chris and 𝘽2𝘽. Those people who know 𝘽2𝘽 might not know Chris, those people who know Chris might not know 𝘽2𝘽, and here we're doing an association. So that's one level. The other level is much deeper and is rooted in how our brain is actually built. We have, more or less over here in our brain, we have a region called the fusiform face area, and it's one of the first areas that activate in the brain right after birth, and it is responsible for how infants identify initially their mother and then later on everybody else. The human brain has a region which is dedicated to the identification of faces. It's only triggered by faces. It's probably the reason, for example, that when you look at a cute car, you will see a face in the beetle, right? You see the face there.
What is it called again?
The fusiform face area, FFA. Okay, very, very small gland in the brain, but very small region in the brain. It's not a gland, but well researched, well documented, and what we are doing by putting a face in the button is we are triggering that area to activate, and since it's a very primal and basic area, it has a lot of impact on how we think and how we feel.
Yeah, I think speaking from a customer side, it's much more easier to interact with a person with a face than just a brand with a logo and a name.
And now you know why that happens. Okay? So it happens because your brain has a region which is all the time looking for faces. The next thing, scrolling down on this mock a little bit, is we have here some client logos. In this case, these are not 𝘽2𝘽 clients. We just put in a bunch of logos in there, but this would normally be 𝘽2𝘽's clients' logos. And by putting those logos in there, we are indicating that you may have never heard of 𝘽2𝘽, but for example, you've definitely heard of Western Digital, you've definitely heard of Apple, you've definitely heard of Nokia. And the idea is, your thinking is, hey, if all these huge corporations are trusting this company with their manufacturing, they can't be complete idiots. There must be something in the background there that is justifying why Apple, why Nokia, why Western Digital have chosen this provider as a partner. And of course, we leverage their credibility to build up our own credibility. Next thing going on is 𝘽2𝘽 have a factory tour, a 360 tour of their facility, which we produced, I think, at the beginning of COVID. And again, because 𝘽2𝘽's factories are so pristine, I'd literally be willing to eat off the floor from the facility. I'm serious, from the facility in Pachínbury. It really makes a difference. People have all sorts of visions of what a factory is, what are the conditions. When you're manufacturing at the scale that Chris and 𝘽2𝘽 are manufacturing, you're very happy to showcase how amazing and how awesome your facilities are. So this plays again to credibility. You can see with your own eyes exactly how pristine and how impressive this factory is. So again, we're building up credibility with the video. We also know that consumption for video content is way off the charts compared to consumption of other forms of content. For Facebook ads, in tests that we run, and later I saw research that was backing that up, we were getting 20 times the engagement on ads that had a video compared to ads that had an image. So 20 times engagement for a video. It definitely justifies the creation and editing of video. One of the reasons we run these podcasts is because we want the video content.
And of course, it's important to keep these videos short. I think the company introduction video is only 60 seconds long.
Yeah, ours is 61 seconds long, and actually we have a stat that's kind of a golden rule in the industry. You can assume that for every 30 seconds of video, you're losing 50% of your audience. So, really, the shorter you keep it, the better it is. We know that we're living with a TikTok generation. Nobody has patience for it.
Is that what you call it? TikTok generation?
It's not, yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Solutions, pretty much as they were. Facilities, pretty much as they were. No real need to make changes over there. Case studies, pretty much as they were. I think the last and most important thing that we're showcasing on this mock, or not most importantly, the last thing I want to showcase on this mock is, if you look at the footer, you will see that we added a map and we added opening hours in the footer. The reason we do this is technical. Google values, or Google adds gives a little checkbox for certain elements that appear on a home page, and if those elements are there, Google appreciates that, and hopefully the thinking is that it'll help you move up in the ranking for those key phrases that you're interested in when people search for your website. So it's really a win for multiple reasons. Number one, it's a great idea to allow people to find your factory easily when they're trying to arrive at your factory. And number two, it makes great sense that people know what the opening hours are. So it's also service oriented, and also from a technical perspective, you do get brownie points from Google for these little tweaks. and we all want to get the Google Brownie points. So I think that kind of summarizes what we are proposing for 𝘽2𝘽. 𝘽2𝘽 are a client, and this is what is scheduled for the next month. So this is stuff that's going to happen anyway. And I think we can move to the next case study.
Yeah, actually, they're not called brownie points; they're called cookie points.
Cookie points. Our next reference. Let's see, they're coming up on screen. Let's wait for the latency for a sec. Okay, there we go. Our next reference is a very different kind of company. This is a consultancy based out of New York, a B2B consultancy, Carbon Credit Capital. Carbon Credit Capital specialize in supporting organizations that wish to become carbon neutral. They do that through expertise and access to carbon credits, and they support the purchase of carbon credits by organizations that need them from validated and approved sources, and they provide consulting for large conglomerates on how to reduce their footprint and hopefully become neutral. Their customers, they're led by Olivia, who's been in this industry for many, many years and is a real thought leader and opinion leader in the space of carbon credits and spares and of environmental thinking. And I think that as far as I remember, their primary customers are financial institutions in the United States, and that's what they do. Ms. Fusser, Olivia, has been in the space, I think, for at least 2 decades. She's really one of the first people that was recognized as being a maven in the space of carbon credits. So, as we did last one, with the last example, we're gonna scroll through the existing site, and then we'll show the tweaks that we're proposing for their next iteration. So again, we have a pretty standard layout: hero image, call to action button, blurb. In their case, we have all these credibility logos already there, so you may have never heard of Carbon Credit Capital, but I'm pretty sure you heard of Gold Standard, Vera. These are very, very well-known organizations.
Of course.
Similar layout, we have the service lines or the solution lines that Carbon Credit Capital offer. 4 boxes across horizontally. In this version of the website, Carbon Credit Capital also have a bit of a B2C pitch going on. You can buy carbon credits to offset your travel. You can do that directly from the website. E-commerce transaction. About us, projects are the nature reserves, the green areas that Carbon Credit Capital leverages in order to sell the carbon credits that they sell, or to facilitate the purchase of carbon credits that they do. News and footer. So again, pretty standard layout. And we will now look at the next iteration. I think it's very important, by the way, to emphasize that for all these mock-ups, we're not looking to revolutionize the way the website looks. The process of design and the process of tweaking these websites is a process of evolution. There's a lot of good stuff on both the pages that we saw. We're not looking to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We're just looking to push up a little bit, move from, say, a 90, a website that's scoring 90/95 to a website that's scoring 98/99, maybe 100. Okay, so same mechanic that we had. We talked about this before when we were looking at 𝘽2𝘽. Also here, we're integrating a face into the call to action button for the same reason. We want to trigger the Fusiform face area. We want to break down the barrier and say, look, this is indeed a company, but you're talking to real people. This is Alex. This is the person that you'll be speaking to.
Who doesn't want to speak to Alex?
Everybody wants to talk to Alex. Alex, everybody loves you.
Of course.
We have credibility logos, and then what we have here is we did something interesting with the services. Generally speaking, I think it's safe to say that the more valuable your service is, the more yeah, we have Chris joining now. Hey Chris, welcome to the show.
Sorry.
It's
Hi,
okay.
good morning.
Hi. We just finished looking at your website and talking about your website and talking about the next iteration. And we said nice things about you and how knowledgeable you are about plastic. And since you missed this portion of the show, then we will host you in the next episode where we will talk about things like the VR tour, the 360 tour that we did in your factory, because I promised the audience that earlier on. So you're very welcome to stay and listen in, but we just covered your factory in the first 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, it's a big factory to cover in 10 minutes.
It's five facilities, right? So we did our best.
Okay, but thank you very much. So basically then you don't really need me anymore.
You're off the hook, man. You can go and enjoy your motorcycle ride.
Okay. See you
Cheers.
guys later.
Regards to Lawrence. Thank you very much for joining. See you.
Thank you, Chris.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So I promised that Chris is a nice guy. There you go. He's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. We were talking about Carbon Credit Capital, and we were talking about their service lines, and you can see that the service lines have a much larger representation in this mock. Rather than being 4 across, they are now 4 vertical with big pictures and a little bit of text. And the reason we're doing this is, again, I mean, it's really simple. The more valuable your product is, it's probably a good idea to give it more space, to give it more breathing, just dedicate it, give it the respect that it deserves. Don't bunch it all together. So if I'm selling, a small box of pills or knickknacks on the internet, great. You can have these Amazon or Alibaba type displays where you got a lot of things going on. Each one of them costs, 10 cents, 5 cents, fantastic. It's about showing a lot of variety. But if you're selling something like real estate or vacations or cars, anything which is a high ticket item, if you think about websites like Airbnb, Agoda, Booking.com, real estate websites, you'll see that the representation of the product has a nice, big, juicy image. Because it's a very valuable product, of course you want to dedicate a lot of place and give people the opportunity to be well impressed by this representation. And the same thing is happening over here. These are high ticket, high value services, and they deserve more space, more respect in the layout. So that's what's happening over here. The projects, similarly, I mean, each one of these projects is a forest or a marshland or a mangrove area somewhere. Again, we want to give them the respect that they deserve.
I feel like too many times when you see these sort of websites, you think, cramming too much information, you try to put as much as you can on the homepage, but then you end up with it just being really crammed and messy, and as a user, you go onto these websites, you really don't know where to start looking. I think this a little bit with Hicks law, so you have to really narrow down what you want the user to look for and search for.
I'd also say that I don't really have an issue. I mean, if a page like Alchemy or like CCC that we're looking at now has a lot of sections on it and they're well organized, that's all right. There's the cognitive overload of scanning slowly through content which is categorized properly and labeled properly isn't that great. It's definitely something we can handle. But if you're forcing us to look at the same time on the screen at lots of options, we start suffering dilemma of choice, we suffer decision fatigue, and when we suffer decision fatigue, what we basically do is we say, okay, I don't want to interact, I'm just going to choose not to choose. It's the difference between going to McDonald's and saying, oh yeah, I'll just have the Big Mac, or going to a Chinese restaurant where you've got 50-page menu and you don't actually really know what you want to order.
Yes.
Scrolling down, blog, pretty standard, about us. we basically lay out, by the way, the content on the page by how dynamic it is beyond the basic call to action. So the reason that the blog is above the About Us is because the blog's constantly changing, whereas the About Us is static and doesn't change that often. FAQs, and again the map, and in this case I think we have the opening hours over here as well, for the very same reason that we mentioned earlier on. First of all, it's good service. Second of all, Google appreciates it when you have these details on the home page or on the page that you want to rank, and so it's an easy tweak that gives you real benefits in terms of your ranking. So I think that kind of covers Carbon Credit Capital, and we're very much on time. We're moving on to our third example and the last 10 minutes of the show today. The last example is actually a very interesting one. This is Sumitomo Heavy Industries, their Thai website. Sumitomo is what I call an invisible giant. It's one of Japan's largest and oldest industrial conglomerates. Sumitomo has been in business since the 19th century. They're one of those companies that you probably have never heard of, but they're probably active in the country where you live, doing really, really big things.
Actually, they're one of those really classic invisible giant companies.
Yeah.
Lots of people have heard of Sumitomo, but no one knows what they do. Really.
Yeah. Their lines of business, one of the things that they do, they produce various digging machines, so all the big things that you see on construction sites. That's one of the things that they do. In Thailand, I know that they are partners in one of the conglomerates that owns the industrial parks over here. So very, very big. We're going to scroll through their website. Same deal as we did with the previous examples. Hero image, service lines. Whoops. What we do, you can see the different types of service lines that they offer here in Thailand. News, insights, and that's about it. And we will now show what the next iteration of Sumitomo could look like. Past the latency. Yeah, okay, great. So repeating the technique of having a face and a person in the call to action button. For the same reason, in Sumitomo's case, it's actually even more important because they're such a huge organization. You really want to feel, hey, I'm actually going to be talking to Bill or John or
So
Jake
to
or
repeat
whatever.
this
Exactly.
the third
Humanize
time, it's the
Fusiform face area.
Fusiform face area.
Fusiform face area. Humanize yourself. Humanize your organization. For those of you who are owner-operators like myself, I'm sure it resonates with many of you, many people, many of your customers. They do business with you because of you. They want to see you, they know you, they trust you, they respect you. You're the person that shook hands with them when the deal was struck. You're the person they referred to their friends. It's their friend that's coming on the website. Ah, that's the Mike, or that's the Chris, or that's the Olivia that everybody was talking about. Great, I'm in the right place. So many reasons to do this. Scrolling on down. Again, more white space, more breathing space. Just gives a very different feeling to how this organization perceives itself. More confidence, more credibility. Also makes a very different experience for the person who's reading the page. It's more digestible, it's more readable, less fatigue. Call to action, talk to our experts. I like calls to action that are relevant to the industry that they're in. So for example, for somebody like Chris, I would say talk to our engineers. Somebody like Carbon Credit Capital, talk to our experts, etc., etc., etc. We saw the same. We saw in Carbon Credit Capital. We saw this idea of if a service line is very valuable, you want to have more space dedicated to it, And here we're repeating the same technique on the Sumitomo website. You can see that rather than having 4 of these service lines all bunched up together, they're now vertically scrollable, and each one has more space, more respect on the page. Just feels very, very different.
And as a user, you're looking through this, it's much more relaxed, and you're just like, visually more appealing also.
It gives you time, you have the feeling that you can scan this and there's no overload. It's a pleasant experience as a consumer of content. Better paced for how we can perceive and then digest the information.
That's a good way to put it. Better pace.
Before we had the Pride and About Us as small boxes. Again, much bigger boxes, expanded. Same idea. We're a huge corporation. Take the time, come visit these sections of our website. There's interesting stuff to learn about us. This is one of my favorite techniques for building credibility, just by showcasing that the company is active throughout the region and has these facilities in all these areas. It's already a very clear indication that you're talking about an MNC, multinational corporation. Makes a good impression, builds credibility. The numbers over here are of course totally wrong, because I said earlier on that Sumitomo has been active since the 19th century. But numbers, stats, when you're dealing with, when you're in B2B, when you're dealing with what we call direct persuasion, these stats are important. They build credibility. A word about direct and indirect persuasion. I know we touched on it in the previous podcast. There are basically, in psychology, we recognize 2 types of persuasive messaging. One is the indirect persuasive route. The indirect persuasive route is basically when we are trying to charm you into being persuaded by what I'm saying. So for example, every time you see an ad with aesthetic people in bikinis, that is the indirect route for persuasion, because it doesn't really matter what is being sold. We could be selling vacations, we could be selling bikinis, we could be selling luxury yachts, we could be selling watches. It would still be beautiful people in bathing suits, and what we're actually doing is we're enjoying the picture of the beautiful people in bathing suits, and that's how we were drawn, our attention was drawn in. For B2B, this type of persuasion is actually not really effective. B2B, usually what is effective is the direct route for persuasion. The direct route for persuasion is what happens when you're, for example, going to buy a car and you're comparing different models, and then you're looking at the specs, or you're buying a computer, you're looking at the specs, you're really digging in, you're saying, oh, this has more RAM, this has more speed, this has a better screen, this is a better brand, I don't know, whatever, and you're comparing all these options, and your decision is based on the logical process of selecting the vendor that you want to work with because they give you the best overall package. B2B decision making, especially in larger corporations, is always that way, and so these numbers, these details that we see over here are triggering that kind of persuasion.
I'm just trying to imagine, like a bikini person selling Facebook Meta. Join us today.
Exactly, yeah. Sumitomo, buy our forklifts. You have a model on the forklift. I think you see campaigns like that occasionally, but they're basically humorous. So the idea is to get that weird image and get people to start reading, but actually the real persuasion is going to happen on the direct persuasion rather than in the indirect. It's not to say that you're only using one or only using the other. It's to understand that these are 2 different tools in your toolkit, and they're effective for different things. So we have our blog, and that's about it. And I think we're right on time. It's exactly 10:30. So those were our 3 case studies for this month. I think our next show is on the 21st of April, or
Let's check.
maybe I think it's the 28th, 7th.
28.
28th. So our next podcast will be on the 28th of April. We will again be doing the B2B Marketing Excellence podcast. And thank you very much, everybody, for joining. We're going to shut down the live stream now. And I reckon that within a few hours we will have the video and the post ready on our blog for those of you for people who missed this. We'll ask you to share this. So thank you very much everyone for watching and joining, and see you next time.
Thank you. See you next time.